Welcome to BT Podcasts. In this episode, find out how multi-entity upmarket SMEs are navigating these volatile times and thriving. This podcast is produced in collaboration with Payoneer.
Today, we're zeroing in on the economic landscape of Asia, the born global SME. These aren't the traditional small businesses. They're operating across borders, managing multiple entities, and tackling the immense complexity of cross-border commerce. What does it take for these upmarket SMEs to successfully scale across the dynamic yet fragmented Asia-Pacific region? And why does Singapore often act as the strategic launch pad? Welcome to BT Podcast by the Business Times. I'm Howie Lim, and helping us answer these questions is Nagesh Devata, Senior Vice President for APAC GTM at Payoneer. Nagesh, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Howie. It's a pleasure.
We're talking about SMEs today, and many of them that cater to the high-income consumers or enterprise-level clients. They operate across multiple entities and markets. What typically, though, triggers this stage of growth?
Well, what happens typically with an SME or a small, medium-sized enterprise is they've done well in their home market. Typically, this is the market where they live in. And they've succeeded, whether it's selling goods or services to consumers or other businesses. And really at that point, they start to see the opportunity that they can grow their business and go international. And international can mean a lot of different things to different businesses. It could be expanding across Southeast Asia, across Asia. It could mean going global to new markets where they think there's going to be demand for their goods and services. But at the same time, it's not always about selling a product. It could also be about sourcing the materials they need for their products and services. And that's typically what we see, and they start to become more international.
And why is Singapore, though, often chosen as a base to expand across the region?
Well, Singapore is unique in what it represents. There are hubs around the world, or what we define hubs, places where people come and set up their businesses, set up their entities and incorporate their businesses. But what is unique about Singapore is its geographic position. It's a gateway to, of course, Southeast Asia and beyond, but its infrastructure in terms of logistics, financial services, its connectivity, its talent. And of course, ultimately, it is very much a business-friendly place for many small businesses, entrepreneurs to come and make it a home for their business. And the way I tend to think about it is it's both a gateway, but it's also a launch pad. It's a launch pad to go global.
The thing is, though, Nagesh, APAC, fast-growing, dynamic though it is, it's also a little fragmented, a lot of diversity, different languages and such. What are some of the key challenges that these SMEs, these multi-entity born global SMEs face when it comes to expanding across the region?
Lots of challenges. As wonderful as Singapore can be as a gateway and as a launch pad, small businesses or SMEs face a number of challenges when they're starting to think or how they go global. They need to think about their infrastructure and a lot of things. It's not just about selling the goods or the services that they're operating with, right? There's an element of how to do this, the payments infrastructure, how to get incorporated. It's thinking about taxation. It's thinking about logistics and inventory management. It's thinking about banking relationships. It's all of that that goes in, which are part of the challenge that SMEs face. And as great as Singapore is as a launch pad, it doesn't necessarily prevent and limit all those other challenges. Those still need to be solved. But if you have one big, great place to start from, and that is where I think Singapore is unique. You have access to the tools, the infrastructure, the talent, the people, the systems to build your business.
But each country, if you will, in the region will have, say, its own set of rules and such. How then do regulatory frameworks, taxation, and financial infrastructure across Asia affect expansion strategies of these SMEs?
Sure. APAC, dynamic, thriving region with lots of unique markets in the region. But first and foremost, I come back to the point that Singapore is very business friendly. Coming and setting up your business, if you choose to incorporate in Singapore, is a fairly straightforward process. It's not ambiguous. It's very clear. It's very transparent. You know what you're meant to do. And from a reporting point of view, it's very clear. Things like language. Languages, you can operate your business in English. And I think, again, when you look at APAC markets, or even if we just look in Southeast Asia, while it's amazing to have that diversity, it's also the challenge, right? Like trying to figure out how do I get incorporated, how to operate in a language that's going to be universally accepted. If I'm an SME, what language do I need to present myself to the rest of the world? Well, if I can transact or if I can present myself in English, it does open up and makes it easier for the people on the other side of the world, be it vendors, suppliers, consumers, buyers, to be able to interact with me. And Singapore, again, is also a very established market from a financial services perspective. We have very established payments infrastructure, access to banks. There's predictable FX rules and liquidity. There's access to different types of financial services, not just traditional banks. So I think when you think about Singapore, I think this is one of the best quotes someone gave to me. It's like not just coming to a market, but it's like a marketplace. It's like coming to the downtown of a city where everyone meets and you have access to that. And that is where I think Singapore thrives and excels as being not just the gateway, but again, this idea of the launchpad.
And of course, a service ecosystem like what you're doing at Payoneer obviously helps, right?
Absolutely. I would say again, this is where fintechs or a company like Payoneer sits at that epicenter or at that middle of the ecosystem. And being able to help an SME, whether that SME is sitting in Vietnam, Korea, China, India, being able to come to Singapore and have access to the tools. And if I'm a business, I want access to tools. I want access to all the things in one place. I don't want to have to figure out that, well, I do a little bit in Singapore, I do a little bit in India, and I do a little bit in China, and a little bit in Hong Kong. I don't want that. As a SME, I am fairly limited on what I can do as a business because I don't have it in house. And having access to all those tools in one place is what's so powerful. And ultimately, it's choice, of course, for an SME, right? Because SMEs come in all different types of shapes, sizes, maturity. But this is where Payoneer comes in, and we're able to give them those tools, one, educate, but also give them the tools and then help them scale and go fast. Ultimately, I think speed, flexibility is super important for these SMEs and then to remove the pain points for them.
Still to come, how does Payoneer help with friction when it comes to cross-border payments? Also, if you're planning to go global in, say, the next year or so, what is the one thing you must remember? More advice from Nagesh Devata from Payoneer in a moment.
And now, back to BT Podcasts, produced in collaboration with Payoneer.
Talk to us a little bit more specifically of what Payoneer does in terms of, say, simplifying cross-border payments and reducing that friction, because SMEs, as they scale internationally from Singapore, obviously are going to be facing quite a number of challenges.
Well, SMEs, and I would maybe use an analogy to kind of frame this. So an SME might be a big fish in their home market and have access to a banking relationship because they're known or that's where they are and that's where the founder is. So they can walk into a bank, they have a banking relationship. So that may be their impression when they start to go global. And it's like, yeah, of course, it's going to be the same everywhere. But if we start to compare that and when you go and you want to expand, they don't have the means to walk into a bank, a physical bank. A physical bank does not look at that SME the way maybe that bank in their home market did. They have no history, they have no reputation or no credibility in the sense that they're new. So where Payoneer steps in is okay, like we come back to the beginning point that I kind of mentioned is that let's start with two sides of this. One, I'm an SME and I want to buy goods or materials to make the products or services that I have. That typically doesn't always happen in the market that you live. So you're sourcing materials. So how do you pay them? How do you pay for those materials? Well, that's first of all where Payoneer can help because we can help with different currencies. We can help with that money movement into another country and help them buy the goods and services and help to be able to do that settlement quickly. Remember, I'm an SME and I don't have as much history and I want to buy something. we can help bridge that trust. That's sort of the first thing. And then similarly, when I want to go and expand my products, my goods, or reach to new markets, think about what is my reputation in that new market. If I'm an APAC SME, maybe not from Singapore, but from an emerging market in APAC, and I go to the US and I'm an IT developer or providing services, a game developer, and I'm selling that to somebody in the US, that US company is saying, okay, great, I like your products and services, but I don't know if I want to pay you because you're all the way on the other side of the world. And I think these are things that maybe for someone in APAC seems very, like, we're very aware of it. But for somebody, say, in the US, they're thinking, well, you don't have a bank account in the US. And yet you want me to transfer money to the other side of the world where I'm not comfortable. So we have this trust gap. And this is where Payoneer comes in. We're able to bridge that trust gap and we're able to help that SME start to look local around the world. So what Payoneer does is we provide virtual accounts in multiple currencies around the world. So I can provide that customer who aspires to go to the US with a US dollar virtual account. Now that buyer or vendor in the US pays directly into a US dollar virtual account. So I start to look local. And that becomes critical to all these SMEs, be it how they operate in APAC or how they operate in Europe, or if they're going to North America, giving them all those tools. And then finally, the last piece I would say where Payoneer comes in is giving them other tools. And the other tools is we give them access to a credit card issued by MasterCard. We give them access to lending. We give them access to payment gateways. We can let them go global and without the limitation of a traditional bank or trying to build the relationship with the traditional bank.
I feel as though that's the soundbite. Global SMEs looking local.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you could offer one piece of advice, practical piece of advice for, say, this SME who's planning to expand globally in the next 12 to 24 months, what would that be?
First of all, be educated about the options. There are lots of options. Start to look at fintechs. And I think there are partners out there. There's centralized platform like Payoneer, and then there are partnerships that can help you make that possible. So they can help you incorporate in places like Singapore. They can give you access to tools. So that combination of Payoneer plus an incorporation service like partners like OneTax or Agri Consultancy in Singapore, to me is the winning formula to take advantage of Singapore and go global. I think the other aspects there are tools and capabilities like multi-currency, helping them manage just not looking at things as costs, but being able to look at things in terms of optimizing their scale. And ultimately, I think it would be how an SME is not looking for just what they do on day one, but it's really building a plan for the next 12 to 24 months, building the infrastructure, building the flexibility, having the setup, being able to expand to new markets. So not just limiting yourself to, I expanded to one market. You succeed in one market, you want to be able to expand, move quickly to the next market and the next market and the next market. That I think is really key. They don't want to have to build the financial infrastructure every single time they go to a new market. And what they can do is have one unified solution, one solution that's going to help them go global and help them move at the pace they want to move. But I think my view is with solution like Payoneer, they're able to move global. They have that flexibility and they can evolve their business very, very quickly.
Nagesh, thank you so much for spending time with us today and for your insights.
Thank you, Howie. It's a pleasure today. Thanks for allowing me to join.
Nagesh Devata, Senior Vice President for APAC GTM at Payoneer. This has been BT Podcast by The Business Times. I'm Howie Lim.
This episode of BT Podcasts was produced in collaboration with Payoneer.
Find more BT podcasts at businesstimes.com.sg/podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. This podcast is meant to provide general information only. SPH Media accepts no liability for loss arising from any reliance on the podcast or use of third parties' products and services. Please consult professional advisors for independent advice.